All right, hello everyone. We are back with the Ricky Show. I have to tell you, Ricky, last week when you weren't here, we had the craziest show ever. There was like four people up in here, and we were talking about death, and you weren't here, so it was fun. I'm glad we went ahead with the show.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
anyway, where were you,
I was in Santa Fe. I
and what were you teaching?
was teaching. It was a workshop called Evolving Identity.
Oh, interesting. What was the group, or if you don't mind me asking?
So it's called Modern Elders Academy, and a guy named Chip Conley started it, based on the idea that we have a school to prepare us for life, but we don't have school to prepare us for the second half of life. Um, and so he started it, and it's cool. They have a really cool curriculum, and then I added some astrological stuff, and it was fun.
Ah,
Really
nice.
cool. Good experience. Yeah.
That's cool. That seems really right up your alley. Okay, so today we have a topic that we haven't covered, and I have to say I can't tell if I hate this topic or love it, but let's just do it once, okay? Which is predicting sports outcomes from astrology. So, Graham, what did you have in mind here?
Yeah, hi. Well, first of all, I just want to say, hey, how's everybody doing? With this eclipse, it's been a little crazy.
Oh my God,
Um,
this eclipse. Oh my God,
yeah,
my computer, like I had all kinds of tech problems. It was square Uranus. It was insane. What do you think of the
yeah.
eclipse, Ricky?
What eclipse?
Yeah,
Fair.
yeah, you're at that level.
Power through it. That's cool. Yeah, well, this topic, I was trying to think like, okay, like what's a good and yeah, I realize now like I might have picked something that might be super annoying. But so when I was first learning about horary astrology, which is like answering questions, like direct questions with astrology, one of the topics that came up, I thought was, oh, that's kind of cool, but I kind of moved past it, was sporting events. So like, or like really any kind of contest, like, like in olden times, like people fought duels or whatever, like in the broad sense, any kind of contest between two groups. And it turns out there's like a sort of a very niche like subset of astrologers who just do sports astrology, like which team, whether it's like it's football or tennis or um, but yeah, it's like a very specialized like horary astrology thing. And I thought, like, who better to talk about it with than someone who's like a major star of like the NFL world?
Okay, so horror astrology aside, we have to ask Ricky, have you ever used astrology in predicting football outcomes?
Yeah, I was asked to do a couple of Super Bowl shows, and so I did it for the show. I did it for the podcast.
So you don't do it just for fun?
No, mm-mm.
No.
No, but I have. I started building an app. I started building an app for it, uh, and it so just to because it's obviously related to the topic, but in the apps there's two functions. One is for sports injuries, which is cool, and it's related to betting on games. But the other is using Horary, and when someone taps a game, the first question that pops up is, what's your team, and then they select the team, and then based on the time, it answers the question of who's gonna is my team gonna win. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, okay, so I guess are there any statistics on if by using astrology do people improve their betting? Like, is there statistics on this? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know if it like actually works. It's kind of like astrology in the stock market. Like, does it work, right? Like, does it make you more effective, or is it just kind of a fun thing to do?
I mean, there's definitely astrologers who do stock market stuff that like swear by it, like Bill Meridian and like those guys, or like Evangeline Adams back in the day. Like oh no, I don't. Like statistical studies are really hard with astrology. I don't know that that's like
Mm.
I don't know how that shakes out, but
Well, what
yeah,
It's
what
a
would you?
tool. it's a tool. So I don't think you can. I don't think you can make a blanket statement to say can astrology improve. If you know how to use the tool, then it would have to. If you don't
Yeah.
know how to use the tool, then it's not going to. So for me, the question is how do we build a tool that then people can learn to develop some kind of proficiency or competence with?
Mm.
Yeah. Well,
Okay,
I feel
so
like any kind of prediction, like weather prediction, right? Like not talking about astrology for now, but just like any kind of prediction is going to be, not 100%. You know, people get better models, and but like any kind of stock market tip you get, it's never a done deal.
well,
Uh,
why do prediction? Like, what is the use of predictive astrology anyway? Then,
Well, in this case, to make money.
okay,
yeah.
So for
interesting.
for me, if I was and I approached, a good friend of mine has a company that makes documentaries, and his number one sponsor or his number one investor is DraftKings, which is sports betting. And so I pitched him the idea of doing a documentary on astrology and sports gambling. But for him, I think he couldn't see past what if you're wrong? That was like that's where you got stuck. And I was trying to explain to him, I'm not trying to be right or wrong, but I think it's a question of can it's and the nature of the documentary would be asking the question can, but a better question is how can astrology help someone be improve their gambling? And to me, that's a valid question, but you have to approach it as a question and not an assumption of it's going to be this, or this. Because the first thing that I would start with would be looking at the person's fifth house,
Hmm.
Mm. Why fifth house?
because it's the house of games of chance.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I was thinking of gambling as a fifth second square. It's like you're trying to make money having doing fun stuff, basically.
Perfect, perfect.
Mm,
So even that. So I would look at someone's second house and their fifth house, and I'd
yeah.
say natally, what's the right? Or do these two houses have any kind of interaction? And then as far as if I'm trying to say I want this to increase, then I'm going to say only make a bet when there's a majority of harmonious aspects to the fifth house rulers of your chart.
Is this
And
in a horary or no? This is in.
because but to me everything in my life or in any individual's life everything stems from the natal chart. So
Yeah.
if you don't have right, if you're not entitled to receive money from fifth house means in the natal chart, guess what, right? You probably shouldn't gamble, right? But or if you need to and you find times where the fifth house is supported, that's going to based on astrology, it's going to increase your chances of winning.
Mm, interesting. So
So
what?
I definitely see that from like a personal perspective, like in terms of like placing a bet. Yeah, you'd want to look at your own fifth house in terms of like how you would relate to gambling in general, or how you would approach, games of chance like that. But like I think in terms of like the event itself, so like Horary is like a different, I don't know, it's got like a different mindset where it's like not sort of person focused. It's just like talking about
but
the
I don't
event
think you
itself.
I don't think you understand what I'm saying. Okay, what
Okay.
I'm saying is the orary chart is only as good as the person. And you have to have an
Yeah, I
individual
agree.
first. That's all that I'm
Yeah.
saying. And I'm saying right, you can do or you can be the best orary astrologer, but if you're using it to win in the fifth house when your fifth house is receiving a lot of hard aspects, right?
Hmm.
That's all I'm saying. That's
Yeah.
all that I'm saying is that the orary chart and any other chart that we interact with, from my perspective, it all feeds the natal chart. If it ain't in the natal chart, I don't care what else you do. It ain't gonna show up. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah,
So
that
So
makes
so
sense.
so I'm just saying, do oraries if you're doing it for gambling. Do it when you're having. You're gonna have a better result with the orary if you do it when your fifth house is highly supported relative
That's
to
fair. Yeah, I don't
games of
really
okay,
have any
chance.
fifth house.
so just to
Yeah.
elucidate what Ricky, the point he's making, which is a super good point actually, which is like let's say you have a Sun in the fifth square Jupiter in the second, right? That in Jupiter's in Sagittarius, and it's this really healthy square, and you have a transit to it, like Jupiter hits it. Maybe that's a great time to drop horaries around gambling. But if you have a Mars Saturn square from 5 to 2, and you have Mars hitting it, like you might just drop some horrors and do a bad job of reading them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Especially
that's
if
kind of
they're
like that
being
meta
triggered.
level.
Yeah.
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 Oh, sorry.
But
Okay.
I think that meta level, but I think that's the only way to accurately answer the question. I think you have to bring meta levels in. I think if you just keep it as simple as orrery in the game, you'll see, if you do the research, you'll see it's all over the place. But you add
Yeah.
these meta levels in, I think the data would clear itself up a little bit.
So what if your chart had a bad square from the fifth to second, but the Horary astrologer that is helping you has a great aspect from 5 to 2?
If again, if you again, if I feel a compulsion to gamble and my fifth house is receiving a lot of hard aspects, that compulsion is coming from a part of myself that is trying to get rid of money.
Okay, Graham, tell us though. Let's tell us though. What would a Horary astrologer look at as far as gambling?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. So like, this is like not at the level of like the astrologer's chart or their client's chart, but looking at like the event itself. So like taking a chart for the time of the start of the game. Like, so the team that's like favored to win, that's got like, and then the team that's like the underdog. Those are like the two kind of poles of the chart. So you look at like the first house ruler uh, is the represents like the favored team, and the seventh house ruler represents like the underdog team. And then from there, you kind of see like, okay, like which is that ruling planet? Is it on an angle? Like what kind of aspects is it making? And so say like the underdog team like has like, I don't know, it's ruled by say Venus on the midheaven or something. Then it's like there's going to be an upset. It looks like there's going to be like a like the team that isn't favored to win is going to win. It seems like.
Hmm.
And then there's also like a consideration like home and away games. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, and then sometimes like if it's not the first and seventh house rulers, it's the 10th and fourth house rulers. So same thing where it's like the favored team is represented by the 10th house ruler. Uh, and yeah, so that's kind of like how you get into a chart like that, and that kind of relates to all kinds of horaries. Like that's one specific sporting example, but that's the general model for like doing any kind of horary about all sorts of questions. Like
What
the
do you
classic
think of
one is like a
that?
trial where you got like the prosecutor and the defense. Prosecutor is the first house, seventh house is the defense. It's like it's a similar.
Interesting. So you have
Uh,
to look at home team, defender, and that. Ricky, what do you think of that Horary process?
um, from what I've studied, I hear it. I think that's, and the nature of this hour. It's a little bit oversimplified, but it's the basic idea, and each astrologer will have their own understanding of how to gauge strength and things that jump out to them. But I think that's the basic idea, is establishing whether it's your team, whether it's the team that's expected to win. As some people say the first house, some people say the whole left side of the chart, some people say the seventh house, some people say the whole right side of the chart. You can say the 10th house from the first, right, and the 10th house from the seventh as the prestige of the home team or the away team. So
sure.
but my whole point, though, my whole thing is, this is something that we can measure. Is especially if you're using the start time of the game, and you pass in who the underdog is, and you're collecting this data. To me, that's how I would go about doing it. Is I would collect the data first, and then see if it matches up to all of the ideas out there. The machine that I created, because when I've seen horary astrologers at their best, they're storytellers. So it's not even just a yes or a no, that they can pull specific kinds of details out, like underdog is going to win, etc. So what I do is I collect all of the news stories about the competition, about the game between two teams, and I pass it in. I pass it into a large language model, and then I pass in the chart for the orrery chart for the game time, or when the question is asked. So it adds a deeper layer of storytelling and context about the game, and it brings it to the fore relative to the question. Because unless you're a sports expert and appreciating the significance of an underdog, right? that's a small example, but there's so many more nuanced things in a competition that I
No
think
doubt.
astrology can speak to.
Yeah, I'm a little offended at the use of Horary astrology to gamble with. I mean, like I like the idea of using it as a story. It would be like doing a tarot reading on the game and like making a story from the tarot cards. But like, okay, so I actually think that I could actually see remote view a team or a player and see what their dermatomes, what their soul senses machine would be feeling like during the game. And in that way, I think I could actually predict success of certain players or for example, take this. Let's say you're going to draft a player and you look at their chart for the next year after the draft. How are they emotionally going to be feeling for the year after the draft? Are they going to have like injurious kind of like puckerings of the soul that make them ineffective as a player? I mean, don't you think that's a little bit more scientific or factual in this whole
I
equation?
think I think if you're doing prop bets, but even meaning you're betting on individuals' performance, team when you have a team and multiple players and people gambling, I say athletes, we have to realize that we're die on a craps table. Okay?
uh,
But if you're looking at an individual performance, I think you can get closer. But I still would want to have a case history of what has occurred last time certain natal planets were activated. Because I don't think just based on the astrology you can say how someone is going to respond. You have to see how they've responded to similar stimulus in the past to be able to accurately predict how they may act the next time it's activated.
Okay, that's a really good point. And though I would also say, let's say they have a really good aspect of personality, like they have like the Sun in Sagittarius trine Mars and Aries with Jupiter in the natal chart. That is a winning triangle as far as athletics, right? Like, so it's like if we see that Mars is on that
Mm,
triangle.
well,
Well,
That's
I
a
well,
know
good guess.
there's a
Not
whole team
necessarily.
involved, but if they're the quarterback and they're going to break away and run down the field, like in Mars is on that triangle, they're going to have more of the boost to break away and run.
or more of a boost to fight for the rightness of their opinion that clashes with the head
It's
coach.
not necessarily
So
about, yeah.
so to me it's again I have to see a track record of success. To me, I need validation from the person's lived experience to take anything in the chart seriously.
Sure. What do you guys feel about like the chart for the team versus the chart for individual players? Like maybe it's like because like when you're in a group of people, but especially I'm sure for like a sports team, it's like the team dynamics can kind of take over, and it's not really about necessarily the personalities of the individuals. It's more like how they all work together. How do you guys feel
But
about
even
that?
that, but even that, it doesn't predict victory or defeat. A team can work
Oh, for
together
sure.
and still lose. And to me, I think sports is difficult because in astrology we see a hard aspect, right? We're taught to predict something bad happening, but the nature of playing a football game, that's a hard aspect. So it doesn't run the same way it runs in real life because the nature of war or battle is like we cherish over. I say we eat hard aspects for breakfast. So it's
Yeah, squares are
difficult to
good.
know. Yeah, it's difficult to know how each team is going to respond to the adversity. And being on the other side, the coach's number one job is to get us to have a positive attitude about adversity.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so that's what a competition is. Who's going to have the best response to adversity? And you have to see some kind of track record relative to even a chart of a team before I think you could feel confident making predictions about how they're going to respond.
Yeah. Can I just sort of, this is sort of left field, but like, when I was growing up, like I don't think there was like official sports betting, or at least not in most states. And it seems like that's like a kind of a new thing that's kind of come in the last like 10 years. Um, to be honest, when I suggested the topic, the gambling part of it wasn't even on my mind. I didn't know. But like, I mean, I feel like that kind of affects the whole kind of like dynamic of like, when you bring the money into it. I guess a lot of sports is about money in certain ways, but uh, yeah, like how does that affect like I have a feeling that like that would kind of muddy the astrology too. Of like if there's like bets involved, it's like it's different
Wait, what's your
it's a different
question?
thing.
Is how does the money involved alter the situation?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Hmm.
It would depend on the individual's chart.
So, do you
Yeah.
think someone betting could affect the someone's chart betting could affect the outcome of the game energetically? No.
I don't
I have
know.
a question, which is Ricky. How much does looking at the coach's chart d- have anything to do with the game?
Again, if a coach gets fired or a coach wins the Super Bowl, the transits could look exactly the same.
Why is
That's
that?
why, because it's saying that there's going to be a change to the 10th house, and the change for better or for worse is going to be based on someone's response to a certain situation. So if you again, the point that I'm belaboring today is if you know a track record, then you can take whatever you see to the bank. As far as in the past when this was activated, he came out victorious, so we see a track record of him making a strong response to this activation. But there could also be a track record of someone not making a strong response. If you follow sports, there's the players that are great during the regular season, and then you get to the postseason, and everyone expects them to lay an egg, and they do. There's some players that are decent in the regular season, they get into the postseason, and they just take off. So if you can find astrological factors that tend to indicate success for someone, and the chart can help you map them, but what are they mapping is you have to see the experiences where the person has manifested the success.
Well, I like that because it's scientific, and you know what you're saying. Like, I don't know when the postseason is, but the sun is going to be in those same signs during the postseason every year, right? So we could say this person does well when the sun's in Aries, or I don't know when is postseason. What month is that?
It depends on the sport, but in football it's Capricorn and Aquarius season.
Okay, so we could say like maybe they thrive in Capricorn Aquarius season because they have like a Mars trine from Capricorn or something, So it's like, and I like what you're saying is like you have to watch them behaviorally under certain transits to get information. And I think if someone was a savvy and a long term better, they could do that.
I do. I think someone could make a lot of money with astrology, but it would take a lot of time and effort of getting a feel and finding their own system. But someone who's willing to work this system, I have zero doubt would find gold.
Yeah. It sounds like from what you're describing, it sounds like maybe like that's really good information for a coach rather, or someone who's like trying to like get their own team to win or be better is like to know the astrology of their players,
Oh, yes,
but
100%. Right? Because
yeah,
you'll see what days are they feeling beat up, and if I beat them up more, all right, they're going to snap. Or what days do they
yeah,
need a fire limp? You just get a sense of what they're going through, and even if you don't think of it consciously, that information is you know it on some level, and you respond in a way that the person feels seen on a deeper level, and you will get a positive response. I mean, I only
mm,
coached for 1 year, and I didn't have my players' full charts. I only had their sun signs, but I just keeping that in the back of my mind. I leaned into that, and I think it helped me communicate well and get what I was trying to teach to them across.
yeah. I think that's huge. That I think even just knowing the sun sign. I mean, that's yeah, you can do a lot with that.
I mean, there's so much. I mean, as somebody who keeps thousands of charts in my mind at one time, not everyone can do that. But it's like having like I've taught preschool teachers who had the charts of all their kids in their mind, and it's similar of like Billy's having a hard time. Mars is hitting his Saturn right now. This and then like a lot of times you'll get like for example in a preschool class, which is a little bit not that's an aside from a football team, but they all have Saturns at the same degree, so they'll all have Mars hit their Saturns in the same week, and like they'll have Mars hit their Uranus in the same week, and they're just not sitting in their seats this week. And I think it's similar to hurting like a class is, and I think one of the things we do with remediation is like timed responses to things. So like if you saw that like Jim on your team was having a hard transit, you could be more attentive to his emotional needs during that week, and then let the other guys kind of defend themselves. And I think the like what Ricky's saying, like the emotional labor that could be spent from knowing those charts to really optimize the team's familial feel. I mean, you could really that would
Yeah,
be a cool experiment, actually.
yeah.
You can do a lot with
Teams
that.
teams have chaplains, but I think they should have like astrological chaplains, who are around the team, knows everyone's charts, and is like in the coach's ear to give them a little bit of heads up about how to utilize the information.
Yeah, I
So,
can see that.
so Ricky, if you had a coach who knew your chart, what would you have wanted them to do with your chart to aid you in your experience?
Ask my opinion. That's what I thought about certain things.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, I have another question, which is what about a one-on-one? Okay, so we talked about the team influence of football kind of makes a lot of confounding variables. But what about a one-on-one sport like wrestling or fencing or something like that? How much can we predict there per the charts of the athletes?
I think to me it's the same answer, but I'll lean into the answer even more. If it's like you have tennis players, that's what comes to mind, and right, if you watch enough of a tennis player, you get a feel for the tennis player. And if you are watching them while you are looking at their chart, you get a sense of where they overlap. And if you have a Rolodex in your mind of different players and their charts and they're facing each other, you're equipped with that information. But then you bring the orrery in. Wow, right? You have access to so much information that can give you clarity to answer your question.
It might be like it's almost like the horary could be like an icing on the top of the cake, but it's like you need the whole cake. You need all the
Exactly.
info, all the yeah. I could see that a lot. Yeah.
Because then you'll
Well,
see sometimes it'll be crystal clear and sometimes it'll be kind of murky, right?
Yeah, well,
And
that's true with
and
horary
you
a lot of times, where it's like there's not always a planet on an angle. There's not always some clear indicator. Some horaries are more clear than others. It's like yeah.
okay, so is there anything? Okay, definitely. If it's a one-on-one match, we can look at what are the general transits in the sky. Is it going to be a fierce battle or not? Like Mars is conjunct Pluto; it's a little bit more fierce than another battle. What is that hitting in the natal charts? How are the dermatomes of each player lit up? Like like how is the body lit up to play? Okay, could we get any information from like the composite chart of the players or the synastry of the players?
Well, I mean,
Oh
if you
gosh.
needed that much information, but to me, but what you just pointed out, that for me, that might be enough, depending on the two opponents. If I see that there's a Mars, Saturn, Pluto conjunction in the sky, and it's time for a fierce battle, and one of the players is known for finesse, and the other one is a fierce competitor, right? To me, that might be enough, right, to push me in a specific direction. Right, because
Well,
it's right. It's like if it's snowing outside and you have your friend right who has to wear layers when it's 78 degrees, right? They're probably gonna have a difficult time in the snow. But your other friend wears tank tops and shorts, on the ice, right? They love it. So if you get a sense of whatever the weather is at the time and how that weather is going to impact the individual.
but the first person but they might have like something that day that's like really spurring them to do, more than usual. Like I don't know, like yeah,
Perfect.
I can see
But
an
that's
upset.
part of the equation. But that's part of
Yeah.
the equation is
Okay.
you would have to see that in order to justify, right, in order to balance it out. Because you would say, oh, right, based on this, but oh, this person has a Mars activation, and I've seen over the past couple of weeks they've been building something. Then, because I think in order to appreciate the outcome of of an event or a competition, it really are the storylines because
Hmm.
that's what tends to play out. And after the match, when you don't just read this person won or this person lost, there's a story inside the match.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
I
what's so
think
fun about the game itself is that, like, yeah, it is telling a story of like struggle and like who's on top, and then at the reversal, and yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, what's so exciting is when you're watching something that's like evenly matched, and it's like, yeah, it's like these two contrasting styles, but like there isn't a clear indicator like who's gonna win. It could be very close. Like I was just watching this thing about a Federer and oh God,
Nadal, Nadal.
yes, yeah, Federer and Nadal. That was like that's the famous one everyone talks about. But yeah, but it seemed like, like they both had such kind of contrasting strengths. It was like really it would be fascinating to look at that
Who
astrology of
is
that.
Federer
Like
and Nadal?
the tennis players, this was like when was this? This was like early 2000s. No,
Yeah,
I don't
early
know.
2000s. Yeah, that sounds
Did they
about right.
just have a match that never ended or something?
It was
Oh,
Matches. They were always like they seem to always be the two men in the final.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, they were like the superstars of the time that were like, yeah, people were always like, oh my god, when are they going to team them up? And then when they did go head to head, it was like, yeah, that was yeah.
What about cases like Greg LeMond, who won the Tour de France like thousands of times or whatever? I mean, what's a case like that, and what do we look at there?
I don't know if I would. Well, oh, go ahead.
Well, what I would look for is if I notice something, whether it's a pattern but something I notice externally. For me, the first thing that I do is look for where do I see that in the chart. So if I'm looking at someone's chart and I know they've won a whole bunch, I'm looking for where that's indicated in the chart.
Hmm.
So that's just a natal thing. Like Greg LeMond's got like a burly natal disposition for, and then maybe we could look at it through the filters of like genetics, culture, climate, and the chart. Like is there something genetic in him? Is there something in the culture? Like he lives on the top of a mountain where there's thin air or something like that. Like you could actually
That
run it through a lot.
corresponds. I'm telling you, that corresponds to the chart. So for me, in order for me to apply something astrologically, I first have to have like a validation that I can answer this astrologically, which means I need to see evidence of it. What I notice in the life, I need to see it in the chart. And I'm
Yeah.
creative about how to find it, but to me, that's what I have to have before I can
Go start with
progress.
the natal chart. Yeah, I could see that one, especially like with like a race. Like I think a race is different from like a sport that's like two teams or like two individuals. Because the race could be like you could have a third person who comes out ahead, and it's like oh god, or like Tour de France, like yeah, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, so Horary, this may not be the best use of Horary. I don't know.
Wait,
But
well, how would Horary attack the Tour de France?
oh my gosh, I don't think I think it would just be like you wouldn't apply it because there's too many factors, there's too many participants,
You could ask, will Greg LeMond win? But you can't
Yeah,
ask who's going to win.
Yeah,
right.
exactly. That's it. Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
distinction. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. What about a chess competition? Now, are we looking at the same indicators in the natal chart as a football or is like a one-on-one like wrestling? Like, are we looking at different indicators because it's a different sport?
I don't know.
I
I
don't
think it would
think
be
so.
the same.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
You
Yeah,
don't think
because
chess
like
is more mercurial?
It's still
but
but
there's like
but for
variants. Like there's a thing called chess boxing. Have you guys heard of this? Where it's like one round of a chess game and then they box and then they go back to chess and then Uh,
Dude.
but yeah, brutal. I couldn't do it. Uh, I could barely play chess. But yeah, I think it's the same because it's still you're still it's the qualities of both players that are astrologically signified. So whether it's like tactics on like a sports field or tactics on a game board, it's like it's still those two players and they're you
All
know
right, Ricky, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I agree because if you're using Horary, you're saying is this person going to win? It's a contest, and so there's a set way in Horary to deal with the contest of this person against this person.
I so do not agree with using Horary for this. Horary is so dumb, dude.
okay, fair.
Horary fucking stupid.
Well, but I think if you use it all by itself, it's limited. I think if you use it as one of the tools, I think it can be brilliant. But
Well,
I look at it as telling a story, not answering simple questions.
God, I
Yeah,
just turned into a child there for a second. I
that's okay.
actually no, but basically, if I was looking at a chess match, I would be looking at the Mercuries of each player, how well their aspect, what are the transits doing to the Mercuries of each player? Okay, whoever's listening here, if you would you look at the charts if you were betting on a chess game versus a wrestling match, would you look at the charts similarly, or would you look at transits of different planets? Because I
I mean, that
I'm
brings in
offended that you guys think it would be the same.
well, it's definitely
Here's
like remember Kasparov versus DeepMind when you start bringing in computers who play chess, like that becomes like a whole different. That might be a different question.
but also to me, the thing that's difficult when you're talking about high level athletes, chess, physical athletes, is that the nature of the training is to be able to overcome any kind of adversity. That's why you have to see a track record of this is an adversity that someone is really good at overcoming, or this is an adversity that someone is struggling with, for the hard aspects to be operative in high level competition.
Hmm.
Yeah, or like when does the transit hit their particular skill? Like say they have like a particular skill that's like activated sometimes, but not always. It's like when, yeah, you might look for those kind of transits. I could see
Okay,
that.
how much do their chakras affect the game?
But
That's beyond
what
me. I don't
affects their
know.
what affects, I mean, what affects their chakras to me
The,
is a deeper question.
well, the transits. The ancients said that the planets play your chakras like a flute.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why it's the same question as of the aspects, but it's still right. It's someone's relationship with the chakra, because
Hmm.
right, and astrology tries to assume a good relationship or a bad relationship, and I think that's fair up until we're 20, and then by 20 we start to kind of figure things out. Right? We start to figure things out at 20, but especially as we get older and older, we figure shit out. So you don't know what a person has figured out or what a person hasn't figured out. That's why for me I need evidence. Right? If I see
Hmm.
something early in the chart, I need to see evidence that you figured this shit out, right? Or
Well, like,
or
okay,
even
like
if I see a trine, I need evidence that you know how to use this for good.
I love
Hmm.
your track record component. The scientist in me is like overjoyed. Okay, so like if the solar plexus of one chess player was spinning wildly, and the solar plexus of another was spinning like a closed valve, like do you think the wild solar plexus person would win?
It depends on the rest of the chart. If they can handle that energy better than the other one can handle the calm, then they're going to win.
Hmm.
Man, talking to you makes me think that this is like rocket science trying to predict according to astrology. This is rocket science.
But it is rocket science, but there's rocket scientists, and I think we have to take it seriously if we're going to be have that kind of accuracy, because we have the
Absolutely.
tools available. We have the tools available to us. We have we have the start times of every game that's ever occurred. We have the result of the game. That's we have so
We
many
could model that.
tools.
Yeah.
We have so many tools to really figure this shit out.
I
Yeah.
think the bigger question is like, is it worth it to use astrology in that way? Like I don't know. I think of like the Gokulans, who they had that thing, the Mars effect, where it's like, so it turns out with their study of people in France, like certain people became athletes if they had like Mars in Libra, which is a really surprising result. Like a Mars in detriment actually led to like better sports performance. I guess like the kind of, and they had a couple other things they came out with, but I wonder like, does a statistical approach make sense, or is it better to like you said, like focus on the storytelling aspect of like the you know I
Well,
keep
I
thinking
mean,
of Jeffrey Cornelius's book, like this, it's less about the technique itself, is like, does it work or does it not work, and it's more like, how does the astrologer use it and how do they
Yeah.
contextualize it within a larger set of known
Ah,
variables, and
that's the art.
is it,
That's the
yeah,
rocket science. That's the art.
yeah, yeah, how,
well, I mean, I
which
think
level
if
are you
you're
going
going to
at?
use it scientifically, it depends on what outcome you're after. If you're trying to make money off of gambling on betting, then you do want to use it scientifically and make sure that you're making sound choices that are based in some kind of observable evidence. But if you're trying to get paid to write a story about the game and that's how you're getting your money on the case, then I think using the astrology to write a good story around the game now, like that's
So, using the astrology to write a good story around the game, there's a lot of people that make a lot of money for doing content about betting,
Hmm.
and to me,
oh wow.
that's where I would use it, because if you're following the storylines of the game and you have astrology to embellish it, you could tell some really cool stories to get people hyped about making certain picks.
Yeah, I can
So
see that.
what is fantasy football? Wait, should we go back to Jenna's question? We actually didn't notice this. Do you consider home field advantage She says her husband looks at Mercury when deciding or decoding the amount of home field advantage. What is that all about?
Okay, again, I'm going to say what I've said. Do research. You can. I was like, why not? Right? If you go and do research and you see that Mercury's made a big difference in past games in your technique, use it. If you haven't done the research, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Where are you going?
Yeah. I feel like astrology is not the first thing you go to when you're trying to figure out like a specific like one-on-one encounter with a yes/no answer. Like astrology is great for a lot of things, but yes/no answers on that level are sometimes not the best.
Well,
Yeah.
Ptolemy would
I,
say a good astrologer uses all information available to them, not just the astrology. So, knowing about home field advantage and how this team's done against the other team and what plays they use against each other and like knowing all that and then considering the astrology, now that's good astrology.
Yeah, I think so.
but I believe you can find a correlate to home field advantage in the astrological language.
Wait, okay, what is home field advantage? That's just because like you get like more cheering fans at home.
Well, so part of it from the player's perspective is we don't have to get on a plane. We don't have to go sleep in a weird bed. Right? We get to sleep in our own bed. We're familiar with the facility. Right? My hot tub and my cold tub are here. And sometimes when you go on the road, the fans are part of it too. But it's just the level of energy that's expended to get to the away team. Even if you think of in war and battle, right? The home field advantage it jumps out when you think of it that way.
Yeah. Well, and like as astrologers, we also know that like place is important too, right? It's like just like your birthplace, matters a lot for your chart. It's like if you're playing in a place where like you're known and you're in a landscape that you're familiar with, yeah, you're gonna be able to use it better. You're gonna know if the field is sticky or whatever. I don't know. That's not my
And how many of
area,
your
but
players
like
have a Cancer moon and they're just like want to be at home?
Yeah. If you have a team that's full of Cancer moons, home field advantage probably is more of a real thing than if you
yeah.
don't.
Yeah, if they all have
So have
Sag
you guys
moons, they want to travel.
have you guys heard of the movie The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh?
No, that sounds what is that?
Mm, 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 mm. Okay, it's a movie about it stars Dr. J, who's a Pisces, and he's playing for a basketball team in Pittsburgh, and they have a little trainer. The little trainer is really into astrology, and he has this brilliant idea that if they get a team of all Pisces, that it'll be easier for them to get on the same page and to win the championship. So they only recruit Pisces, and they win the championship. And
What?
yeah, it's a real movie,
That
and
sounds
and I'm thinking
amazing. I want
about
to see that.
I'm thinking about doing a remake called The Twins That Saved Miami.
The what? The
Oh,
what?
The Twins That Saved Miami.
Oh, okay. There you go. I love it. Okay.
It'd be a football team
Uh,
of only Geminis.
you gotta look out for those mutable signs.
it
Exactly.
should be a chess team of all Geminis. Let's be real.
But that's what
I
makes it
want
more
to.
interesting as a football player of all Gemini. Of all Geminis, that would be a trip.
I want to see Ricky play chess. Is the truth. Okay, let's talk about fantasy football. Like, what is fantasy football, and can astrology help in fantasy football?
So, fantasy football it's been good for the game because in the past you just had a team and you would support your team, win, lose, or draw. But fantasy football, you have a team, but your team is comprised of players from all the teams, and you win if your players play well. If all the players that you selected play well, you get more points than your opponent, you win the game. And one place that I think astrology potentially could have a benefit is what we were talking about, personal astrology. Is if you get a feel for the guys on your team when they might have good games, when they might have bad games, because you only get to play a certain number of your players and you have to sit some players. So sometimes you might sit a player who has a big game, but because he wasn't starting, you don't get his points. And sometimes you start a guy who gets hurt in the first play of the game and you lose all the points that he could have got because you started him. So injuries and that kind of personalized getting a feel for the players and based on their activations in their chart, how might they perform today?
Okay.
All right. Well, now
so
you
this.
take. Oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, sorry.
But also I would do research, and I've started to do this research, but I don't have birth times for players. But if you started to do research on players and when they had low scoring games and when they had high scoring games, and see if you can find any correlations there.
Dude, I really like Ricky, like even more after today because he's such a researcher about this. Okay, as you see, I have a scientific bent to my astrology. Okay, let's talk about injuries. Okay, so can we predict, like you had mentioned this, Ricky, that you look into injuries. Okay, can we predict which players might be prone or sensitive to injuries per the transit, and anything about the prognosis of healing per the chart?
I would say maybe prognosis for healing, but to me, I think more in awareness of the vulnerability is a powerful source of prevention, and only the awareness. If you take pre-remedial measures, I think that's even more. But I find just being aware is really powerful medicine. And I've had major injuries in my career, and I'm an astrologer, so I have gone back and looked at those times in my life. And from a meta perspective, I think the first thing, if you're doing something like playing football or going off to war, is it does require, I think, a certain level of taking care of your mental health, because as an athlete, your physical body becomes a powerful tool for spiritual development. So, meaning, if you're not on the right track, one of the ways to set you back on track could be a sports injury. So, I think making sure someone is spiritually at peace with what they're doing, I think that's kind of a meta consideration to take into consideration, especially for professional athletes. And I think secondly, because we have medical astrology, we can see hard aspects to the first, to the ascendant, hard aspects to rulers of the first house, give predispositions. And so if you take the predisposition and you put it in a football context, right, that adds more pressure towards the predisposition. And transits are important, but I think because injuries are such an important part of professional athletes' lives, that looking at progressions and transits, I found very, very useful for me. And of course, because of the nature of football, hard Mars transits, hard Mars activations is what I would pay close attention to when there are other predispositions active. I mean, I could
definitely see that with like progressions. Progressions would be like, yeah, because that could signal like a major turning point in your sports career or your life generally, but like especially if you're like micro focusing on like 1 year, like okay, like how's things gonna go this year? Do I need to watch out for certain dates? Yeah, I would see like progressions. Transits come and go, but the progressions are like that's like the underlying bedrock of like.
But also, a progression lasts a long time. So all of the transits that occur during that progression, it becomes a sensitive point. So as an example, as a football player, progress Mars, in my natal chart, I have Uranus opposing Mercury. A tight opposition, Uranus opposing Mercury, and Mercury rules my first house. So there's already a predisposition to some kind of Uranus type injury. And when progressed Mars was conjunct my Mercury, opposing my Uranus, I broke my ankle. And it was devastating. Devastating. Yeah. Broke my ankle on my 1,000th yard. And when I tore my pec, it was a progression, and transiting Mars was conjunct my moon in Cancer.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Terrible. Yeah, I mean, I guess this is not applicable to our topic, but I'm just wondering, like, what's that like to get injured as a professional athlete? Is there any part of you is like, oh, I get a break now, or are you just devastated, or is it what is the feeling around an injury?
I think it depends on the person's attitude towards the game. There are certain times where people are like, "Thank goodness I get a break now," and other times, like when I broke my ankle, it was on my 1,000th yard, and I was in my redemption season to show everyone how good I was, and it all ended in a snap, just like that.
So that was a bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I would say for injuries, and this is beyond football, but we have to understand if someone is in a football milieu, that the chances of injuries go up as opposed to someone who's in an, underwater basket weaving class. Or you could drown, but still, there's more dangers on a football field. So any dangers in the chart, right, get more pressure because of the environment that the person is in. And I mentioned a progression to a hard aspect, to a hard natal aspect to a ruler of the first house. That's a specific predisposition to some kind of injury. And if it's by progression, that window for that vulnerability is open, wide open. And so the faster moving transits that get close to those points have the ability to cause injury if someone is not conscious, if someone is not aware.
Yeah. Well, and how do you feel? Okay, because like you have that opposition with Uranus, like because every aspect to Mercury then is also the first house is going to be also activating that Uranus too. Like, do you see that? How do you experience that? I mean, that I don't mean to focus on you specifically. If
No,
that's
no,
like,
but it's a good example, and it's I think part of why you chose the topic, because I can offer specific kind of insight. So
yeah,
it's like that's why I say if you're not aware, because one of the things that a football player has to be aware of is every day when we put that helmet on, right, something bad could happen, and and so I think part of the tension of the hard aspect is living with that on a daily basis and how you handle it. And I think if you're conscious of it, you can navigate it. But if you're having a bad week, you're having a bad, this is why I'm saying it. If you're in difficult situations, you can't always afford to have a bad week or a bad day because it only takes this much. So
yeah,
for me, I think the preventative measure, if I had less ambivalence about being a football player, I wouldn't, right? That energy could express in other ways. That's why
mhm.
that's why I think the gift of astrology is just be more conscious of it. And if we're conscious of our ambivalence, then we find more conscious ways to play it out. If we're not, it plays out as fate,
Yeah, I can see
injuries,
that. Well, and
injuries.
it's tricky because it's like if you're a professional athlete, you don't really get to choose which days you're playing or what, like you're kind of in the situation already. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there's places you can make choices, but
Well, so
yeah, that's a tricky.
the story of when I tore my pec, right? And I love this. This is my favorite story to tell, and I have 4 minutes. My favorite story to tell is I was coming back from a year and a half suspension, so I hadn't played football in a long time, and it was the 10th week of the season. So I already knew these guys are in much better football shape than I'm in. It was already in the back of my mind. And then we were playing in Pittsburgh, and we flew into Pittsburgh, and it was pouring rain, and it poured the whole night, and it poured the whole next day. And when we got to the field, there was like an inch and a half of water sitting on top of the field. And it was so bad we couldn't even warm up. And so I'm walking into the locker room, and I hear this voice in my head saying, I shouldn't play today. I'm not ready. You know? And I felt it. And as I walked into the locker room, the coach came up to me right away, and he said, "Are you ready to go today, Rick?" And I chickened out. I said yes. I said yes. And I got hurt. Whereas if I had the courage to say to take care of myself, transiting moon hitting, the transiting Mars hitting moon in Cancer. If I had the sensitivity to take care of myself and say, Coach, I don't think I'm ready. I think I need another week. He would have been fine. He would have understood, and I wouldn't have had to have the injury.
Yeah, okay, so that's definitely like a situation where like, yeah, knowing the context and knowing the astrology would help like kind of make that kind of choice. Yeah, but that's got to be tough because that's like a snap decision and like, yeah, you're in the
But if you
moment and
knew, but if I knew, if I had read my horoscope and it mentioned anything close when I was walking in, I would have had that extra push that when the coach said, Are you ready? I would have been like, I would have taken pride in meeting the moment. You know,
yeah,
I'd have been like, Coach, I can't do it. And there would have been a sense of pride that I stood up for myself.
yeah.
You know, I didn't let myself be used as an object for someone else to help someone else keep their job.
This is a really good example of where I think one extremely strong use of astrology in sports is looking at the emotional state of players. And maybe that's even more interesting than predicting outcomes of games is, can we help players by understanding their inner, or can you imagine a team of football players who could all read their own charts? Now that is something else,
That'd be
right?
powerful. Yeah.
So,
If I'm ever coaching, if I ever coach a team, that's what we're doing. We
oh
got
my God.
practice, and then we got weights, we got astrology, then we got practice.
Then you got some weed. Then you got some
then
weed.
you got weed. Exactly. We got recovery.
This make me think of do you, are you guys familiar with like Jeffrey Kripal? This guy, he's this he's this data science guy, but he has this idea that we're humans, as humans, like we think we're like split like mind and body, but really it's like the same. It's like we experience it as two different things, but it's really what's happening with your body is what's happening with your mind, and it's like and disentangling that is but it seems like especially in like a football context, like there's so much of that, like your mental state and your physical state are inherently kind of linked in that way
Yeah,
that
and you're getting smashed. All right, you guys. Well, we're at time. This is a weird and interesting topic, and
This was fun. Yeah.
was
Thank
it?
you.
Was
Yeah,
it?
I
I
had a
couldn't
good
tell
time.
if you would like it or not.
Oh, it was great.
All right, cool. Well, we will see you next week, Ricky, and Graham. Thank you. We'll be seeing you at the end of the month. All right.
Thanks,
Bye.
Graham. Yeah.
thanks, bye.
Yeah.